Why, hello everyone, how are you doing this fine day? Hope you're enjoying your week. Welcome to another survival challenge, in particular, an Invincible survival challenge. You guys seem to be really enjoying that Invincible video yesterday, and why on earth would I want to be just a complete bastard and take that fun and enjoyment away from you? So you know what? Another Invincible challenge. That's right, today real life is gonna mimic art. Much like in season 3 of Invincible, where the Invincible War happened, and then right afterwards they didn't even let you have a break, just bang, Conquest fight. We're gonna be doing the same exact thing. How fun is that? And if you're feeling a deep inward desire to go down the comment section and start complaining about me spoiling shit, I would say maybe you, with supposedly human level intelligence and the ability to make decisions for yourself, would have seen the title of this video and the thumbnail in this video and thought maybe it wasn't the best idea to click on that video. Maybe you might want to look inward at your own decisions and stop making dumb ones. We here at the Rouga Rabid YouTube channel are big advocates on common sense and personal responsibility. Before we begin, remember to go down and check the pinned comment where you will find a link to the Discord where we have D&D sessions, art competitions, debate streams, and all sorts of fun activities with like-minded individuals. It's a whole lot of fun. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember to join the membership, you get videos early. But I've wasted enough of your time. Let's get started. So to go over the challenge of today's video, it's, well, I mean, you've seen the season finale of season 3, right? It's that. It's exactly that. Like to a T. That's what it is. Conquest shows up on Earth with orders from his superiors to take over the planet no matter what. He's given complete free reign. He can destroy whatever he wants. He can kill whatever he wants. All he has to do is make sure that he conquers this planet, with Mark having to stand his ground and defend the planet. Only difference here is we're swapping out Mark with some other hero from some other animated series in fiction. Mostly Cartoon Network characters, I'm realizing. I was a big Cartoon Network person as a child. I didn't do a whole lot of Disney and Nickelodeon. So the challenge seems simple enough, right? No, it's the farthest fucking thing from simple. And that's mainly because Conquest doesn't really have that many feats. Like, he's only in this episode. We do know, as stated by Cecil, that Conquest is stronger than Nolan, which, again, you'd think that would make it easier because all we have to do is look at Nolan's feats and be like, all right, Conquest is above that. The problem is, while Conquest is in the show, he doesn't do anything that's better than what Nolan does. So we know that he can do things that are better than what Nolan does, but we never see him actually do it. The best feats in the entire series so far still come from Nolan in season 1. So the best we can say is that Conquest can probably do those same feats and is above that, but to what degree is entirely unknown. So throughout this entire video, I'm gonna be doing a whole lot of comparing with Conquest and Nolan and being like, hey, can Nolan do it? And that's probably something that Conquest can do, even though Conquest didn't do it. I honestly just might as well make this an Omni-Man challenge. It's really not gonna be that different to be, fuck. This video is just doomed right from the gate, ain't it? No, but we do know he's more powerful, and we're gonna take that into account, as well as his character and the actual scenario that happens here is going to be heavily leaned on as an aspect of this challenge as well. So, the question is, what can Conquest actually do? Or more specifically, I guess, what can Nolan actually do? And this is where it actually does get super simple, because all of Nolan's best feats are in one episode. It's the fucking episode where he slaughters all the Flaxons. He lifts up this really big rock with one hand casually and just like drops it. I call it a rock. It's like a fucking mountain. And then he just drops it on a bunch of dudes. Super casual feat. Flies through a city and just destroys it with the force of his flight. That's pretty cool. During his fight with Mark, he crashes into a mountain and causes an avalanche that wipes out an entire town. The strongest attack we see Nolan actually take is the space laser that Cecil shoots at him at the end of season 1. This does virtually nothing to him, and after being hit by it twice, he gets like a nosebleed. Considering that we see Nolan take way more damage from characters like Immortal and War Woman, and we see Conquest literally have his head caved in by Mark with a headbutt, we can assume that all of these characters are actually doing vastly more damage than the space laser. I don't even know why Cecil made this space laser if it does less damage than a punch from Immortal. Like, Nolan is legitimately messed up at the end of the fight with the Guardians of the Globe, and the space laser barely does anything. I get that that fight didn't play out that way in the comics. In the comics, Nolan basically instantly wipes them out, but the show is an adaptation of the comic, not a direct representation. So in the show, characters like Immortal and War Woman are indeed stronger than that space laser. Kinda crazy. Considering that Conquest hits harder than all of those characters, including Invincible and Nolan, we can assume that that space laser is like nothing to him. His punches would be significantly stronger than that. That's a pretty strong punch, guys. That's a really hard punch. Now, speed is a category where people usually start to disagree with me pretty hard. That's because I don't see any evidence in this show that any of these characters are even light speed normally. Maybe there's some kind of thing where when they fly through space long enough, they could build up speed and go to FTL, possibly because they could fly from planet to planet, even though we see the Viltrumites actually having ships when they fly from planet to planet, and it's very possible that characters like Anissa and Conquest did have their own ship that we just didn't see. Maybe it's parked in space or something. I don't know, fine. But we see in pretty much all the fights, even regular humans are capable of reacting to all of the strongest Viltrumites in a fight. Nolan legitimately tried to kill Cecil multiple times at the end of season 1, and he was able to consistently dodge Nolan again and again and again. If he was fighting at like Mach 10,000 or going light speed, Cecil wouldn't be able to react to this. The teleporter that he uses is not automatic. It doesn't just move him out of danger. It has to be activated by a human being. So the Viltrumites just aren't as fast as people say. While they are capable of blitzing people from time to time, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're moving at speeds that no human can react to. We see humans react to them. I can blitz you if you're not prepared for it, or you're just not paying attention, or you're distracted, or whatever. That doesn't mean I'm moving at light speed or some shit. These characters are all moving at speeds that humans can react to. We're not entirely aware of how fast it is. In the last video, I calculated Mark flying to the moon and back as about 37,000 times the speed of sound, but he was pushing himself to his maximum speed, and he tired himself out and collapsed by the time he got to Earth. So that's not a very good representation of just his casual speed when he's fighting and punching people. Like, all of the marks are capable of being fought against by all of the heroes on Earth. Are they all punching at FTL and dodging FTL attacks? No, they're just not. I think what you get here in the Invincible universe is clearly superhuman levels of speed that can also have occasional bursts of far greater speed in certain instances when the characters push themselves, but they're not shown to be able to sustain those speeds for longer than those quick bursts. And honestly, that's it. That's everything. One thing I like about covering Viltrumite characters, they don't have a whole lot of powers. Strength, speed, flight. Once you cover those three and kind of go over their fighting skill a little bit, that's all you really got to do. I know I didn't go over the fighting skill. I'm going to in the video, you know, just keep watching. First up on the chopping block, we have Jack from Samurai Jack, and man, was this harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought picking characters for this list were going to be just the easiest shit ever. There's so many cool options for like superhero type cartoon characters that are outside of Marvel and DC that you could put up into the Invincible universe and just make really cool scenarios. But little by little, my hope in this concept just started to get drained from my fucking body as I realized that all of these cartoon superhero characters that I was thinking of were either way too weak or way too powerful. It was really hard to find characters that didn't immediately get wiped out or immediately wipe out Conquest. Like every single one of my picks, Danny Phantom, Generator Rex, Ben 10, Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot, they're all just vastly too powerful. So just to answer your confusion, that's why you got Samurai Jack here, who kind of breaks the whole superhero theme that I got going on. It was really hard to fill this list up with characters. So a long time ago, there was this big evil shadow demon thing named Coop, and he decided, I'm gonna fuck up a bunch of things and kill a bunch of people. And then eventually he ran into like this samurai shogun king guy, and that guy was like, I don't like you fucking up people, I'm gonna fuck you up instead. And then he does, he fucks him up, and then Aku gets turned into a tree. But then Aku's like, I don't want to be a tree no more, so he stops being a tree. He's like, I'm gonna go fuck up that dude who fucked me up and turned me into a tree. And then he goes and he does that. And then that dude who turned him into a tree's wife was like, oh, you fuck up my husband, now I want my revenge, I'm gonna fuck you up, but like not me, like I'm gonna get my 10-year-old child to become a child soldier, and he's gonna eventually come and do it because I don't, that's hard, I'm not doing that. So she drags her 10-year-old son all around the planet to have him trained with a bunch of masters of different forms of combat, and then gives him the magic sword that his dad used to defeat Aku the first time. It's a katana, so I don't know what the fuck she was teaching him, like bow and arrow and all this other skills for. Just teach him how to use the fucking sword, that's what he was gonna use to kill it. Bow and arrow doesn't even work on Aku. Whatever. So then Jack goes to defeat Aku, and he's successful, but because Aku is a sore loser, he's like, I'm gonna open up this portal, and I'm gonna like toss you into the sun, or toss you into like the past so far to the point that dinosaurs existed so that you'll just die out before I even get to this planet. Just like get rid of you immediately so I never have to worry about you again. But then he stopped himself and he was like, you know what? I really like surprises. So instead, I'm gonna put you super far into the future so that you can appear there instead, and it'll be like a little game. It'll be like, oh shit, wasn't expecting you. Hey, how's it going? That's what I'm gonna do. do. So he does that, and he sends Jack all the way in the future, and now Jack is a samurai in the far future, surrounded by aliens and robots and shit. And he has to defeat a coup again, and then he's there for like 50-something years trying to find a coup and kill him, because apparently getting thrown through time makes you immortal. That is an unfortunate side effect. So in terms of what Jack can actually do, his physical prowess is like a really skilled superhuman. Like, he's not like a regular dude, like a lot of people are gonna say he's not a regular dude. He can jump several hundred feet in the air, probably thousands of feet. He jumps good. His speed's insane. He's capable of dodging or deflecting basically anything that exists within the Samurai Jack universe, including light. The only times he really even seems to get hit is when he's either overwhelmed with attacks or is hit from behind, but there's really never a single instance in the entire series where he's actually outsped or there's something that he just straight up isn't fast enough to deal with. He's stupidly fast. That one point where I say he dodges light, that light's like a couple feet in front of his face, and he like sees it coming towards him and then just moves, like sidesteps out of the way of the light, which is just a crazy level of perception and reaction ability. In terms of physical strength, it really doesn't matter what his physical strength is. It's nowhere near Conquest. Like, he's stronger than a normal human. He can pick up big boulders and shit, but he's not like leveling cities with a punch, which is something that Conquest can do. So there's no point in even talking about it. The main thing here, and the main thing with any conversation involving Jack, is his magic sword. His magic sword is capable of cutting through and killing literally anything that's evil. If it has any evil in it whatsoever, it will cut through it and it will kill it. And that's really why his strength is not really relevant. Regardless of the strength or durability of someone like Conquest, Jack has the means to kill him. He essentially can negate the durability of things that are evil. And before you go making a fool of yourself saying, oh well, Jack couldn't cut through those robots in that one episode, why couldn't he cut through the robots? The robots were destroying towns and shit. Because robots aren't evil. They're fucking robots. Is your goddamn Macintosh computer evil because you put child porn on it? No, that's not how evil works. So having said all that, how will Jack do if he has to stop Conquest from taking over the planet, and Conquest has free reign to take it over any way he wants, can slaughter as many people as he wants? It's all good. How's that gonna go? And the thing that makes this really interesting is that it doesn't matter what happens, this is going to end in a single attack. It doesn't matter who does the attack, but it will be over in a single attack. Jack can kill Conquest in a single swipe of his sword, just like Conquest will kill Jack if he punches him at literally any strength level. Whatever part of Jack's body is hit by Conquest will be turned to paste. So who's more likely to get the first hit? Well, Jack is definitely faster, that's for sure. So on the surface, it seems like Jack would easily get that hit first. No regular human person is reacting to Jack's sword swipes or will really even be able to hit him. You also have the fact that personality-wise, Jack means business. When he has to take a dude out, he takes a dude out. Conquest doesn't really mean business. He like thinks it's fun to fight people and have like a challenge and stuff. He likes fighting. So again, on the surface, it seems like Conquest, if he sees Jack, would like give him a chance to sort of fight and kind of go easy on Jack at the start. And then he'll regret that immediately when he realizes that Jack is significantly faster and can one-shot him. However, Conquest doesn't do that for everyone. He toyed with Mark because Mark was a Viltrumite, and he knew that Mark would be able to fight back. To Conquest, Jack's just gonna be a normal dude with a sword. He's gonna have no reason to even want to give him a chance because Conquest, like all Viltrumites, still believes that there's really no race out there that can fight Viltrumites on par other than another Viltrumite. Jack will really just be like another dude to him, and he'll just go there and slaughter hundreds of thousands of people, destroy cities, fly so fast that he creates sonic booms that tear down cities and turn everyone into fucking paste. And he's not even gonna really care to deal with Jack in any real way. Like, Jack would have to show him something right out the gate to prove that he would be worthy of a fight so that Conquest would even give him a chance to get in an actual fight. I don't really see that happening. Like, if Conquest just shows up and starts destroying stuff, will he even notice Jack is in the city? Like, Jack's in the city, Conquest shows up, he levels the whole fucking city. If Jack's in the city, what are the odds that he's gonna survive? He's definitely not a normal dude, but if a fucking whole building collapses on him, he'll be dead. I mean, I'm not talking about like a little wooden building. You know, I'm talking about like the fucking skyscrapers and shit. He will be dead. That will kill him. Jack's not that powerful. Arguably speaking, Conquest can just fly through a city, destroying the whole city, and Jack will 100% die from just the sonic boom of him flying through the city. And I know Jack can move at nearly light speeds. He should be making the same kind of sonic booms that Conquest does. I get that it doesn't really make sense because the two universes run by different rules, but the two universes do run by different rules. Jack can't make sonic booms that turn people into paste. Conquest can. It doesn't matter if Jack is faster. That's how his shit works. It works differently than how Conquest shit works. So, do I think that Jack can beat Conquest? Yes. If Conquest and Jack are standing looking at each other and Conquest gives Jack the opportunity to fight and they go face to face, Jack is faster and Jack can one-shot him. I absolutely believe he will win that fight face to face. However, Conquest has zero reason to actually give him that opportunity and stand face to face fighting him like that. If he just goes nuts and starts destroying shit, not paying attention to Jack, Jack doesn't really have a way of gaining his attention. He doesn't have a way of keeping up with him. If he wants to start flying through the city destroying shit, he can't stop him in any way because Jack has no quick way of getting to him if he decides to start flying around the planet destroying shit. Overall, Jack's issues are his lack of mobility and durability. And because of that, sadly, Jack is most likely to wind up as some kind of form of collateral damage. Next up on the list, we have Dexter from Dexter's Laboratory. And, there's not really a whole lot for me to say in terms of like the backstory of Dexter. He doesn't really have one. Like the whole show is just Dexter being Dexter, doing his Dexter shit in his laboratory. We don't know what caused him to become a super genius who builds a bunch of science shit in his lab. We don't get that information. The show itself follows Dexter, a boy genius who has this absolutely massive fucking laboratory under his house where he just does all kinds of crazy science shit and getting himself in trouble. And then his retarded sister, who I guess is hot because Mandark wants to fuck her, keeps going down his lab and breaking all his shit and fucking up all his stuff because she thinks it's fun. And he gets super annoyed by it and can't deal. And it's basically a show about a super genius that keeps getting outsmarted by a retard. So kind of a lot like Pinky and the Brain, really, if you think about it. I never really realized how similar the premise of those two shows are, but explaining out loud, it's yeah. So what exactly can Dexter do? Basically anything he wants to do at any time in any episode, that's what he does. He's one of those characters who's so good at science, it basically becomes magic. He's created a device that can summon your imaginary thoughts into the real world. At one point, he used science to go to Mount Rushmore and bring Abraham Lincoln, the stone face of Abraham Lincoln, to life. Like, he brought Abraham Lincoln to life and put his soul inside of a fucking giant rock version of himself. He's been able to mind control people, erase things from existence, all sorts of stuff with all kinds of crazy technology. In terms of his physicals, he is super impressive. He casually, all the time, dodges lasers that are stated to be lasers and be light. Like, it's a very casual thing. He has them all over his lab and they accidentally go off at him more often than you would expect. And he just like casually moves out the way. He just got so used to having lasers shot at him that he just became like a master dodger. At one point, his entire lab exploded and he was at the epicenter of the explosion and he was fine. Like, his skin was a little black, but he was fine. And I've actually seen people online say that this puts him at small building since Dexter's lab is underneath his house, which is like a one-story house, so his lab's probably not that big. But I feel like those people haven't seen the show. There's a reason it's called Dexter's Laboratory. It's fucking huge. Almost the entire show takes place in this lab. There's an episode where he gets lost in his lab and he's stuck under there for days. He has no idea how to get out because of how big it fucking is. He has multiple giant mechs that tower over skyscrapers that he stores in this laboratory. This fucking thing is gigantic. He has a small city under his house. And at one point, the whole fucking thing blew up and he was fine. So Dexter is not a human person. And from a lot of the stuff I'm saying, from the existence erasure and all this stuff, you'd think that he would pretty easily overcome Conquest. But, no, actually. And that's mainly because a lot of the stuff that he has are not in the form of something that would be useful in a fight. Like, the helmet that controls people's minds that he has is actually a helmet that he has to put on his enemies in order to have their mind be controlled. The existence erasure gun is attached to this shitty little robot that's really dumb. He like walks around shooting things randomly, and it's not something that he can just pick up and shoot somebody with. And all of his technology is kind of like that. They all take the form of these really big, ugly looking fucking machines that he just has stored in his lab. And when it comes to actual combat and what he uses for combat, it's really just giant robots. He likes using giant robots a lot for combat. Every time he goes to combat, you can be damn sure this motherfucker's gonna be in a giant robot. So how powerful are these giant robots? Well, his most powerful giant robot was capable of turning an entire mountain into ash. He shot 4 rockets at it. The rockets hit, or missiles, I don't know. What's the difference between a rocket and a missile? Who cares? 4 of them. He shot them at this mountain, and the mountain just turned to fucking dust. Like, he completely erased that shit. This mountain dwarfed the size of an entire city that was like in front of it, and it was about 4 times the height of the tallest building of this city, which was a skyscraper. We don't know how tall the skyscraper was, but it was indeed a skyscraper. So it's a pretty fucking big mountain. Having said that, giving him this robot breaks the challenge, because the whole idea is that he's supposed to be on his own. And this robot, his most powerful robot, can only be used by 4 people because it requires 4 people to pilot it. It's a whole Power Rangers thing. Each person controls a different limb, and then you control the whole, that whole thing. The ones that he can actually only control himself don't come anywhere near that level of power. And none of those mechs that he uses comes anywhere near anything that Conquest is actually capable of doing. So if Conquest attacks and he jumps into a robot that is a 1-person seated robot and he goes after Conquest, Conquest is going to rip him to fucking pieces, because literally the only thing his robot can do is shoot some basic rockets, shoot some lasers, punch through some walls, stuff like that. It's really not that impressive. I'm not saying that Dexter isn't capable of overcoming Conquest. He very clearly is. I mean, in one episode, his laboratory's core, which is like the power source that powers his whole lab, is about to have a meltdown, and Dexter says that if the meltdown happens, it will blow up the entire Earth. And he does use that exact wording. He says, blow up the Earth. So he is capable, casually, of creating things that can blow up the planets. But none of his weapons or basic technology is shown being capable of doing that. He just hasn't built it yet. So if we give him prep time and Dexter has an opportunity to like sit down and build something specifically to prepare himself for a fight with Conquest, I think he can very easily overcome, because his shit is way more powerful than anything Conquest has shown being able to do. I mean, he's created a fucking time machine. Technically, if he really wanted to, he can go back as many times as he needs to have as much time as he wants in order to build what he needs and then go after Conquest. But as far as right now, as far as what we've seen him actually use throughout the show, he does not have the technology capable of overcoming Conquest. So at that point, we would really have to start like writing fan fiction of things he could possibly make that he's never made before. So I'm gonna say, yes, it's definitely possible that Dexter could, but if we just like took him as he is, he can't. If that makes any sense. Next up, we have Harold Coop Kuplowski. That's not a name. From Megas XLR. This show brings back some fucking memories, man. This was a cool show. So there's this giant robot called Megas XLR, and it's the most powerful weapon in the entire universe. And it was built by super smart people that like aren't around anymore. And it's used to defend the universe against an invading evil alien empire. At one point, some bad shit happens, and the robot crash lands on this little known planet called Earth in a junkyard. And there's this guy named Coop, right? He's a normal dude. He likes cars and video games and drinking beers and puss. And he's just chilling one day, and he goes in this junkyard and he sees this giant fucking skyscraper-sized robot, and he's like, that's cool. I'm gonna do something with that. But he starts using his mechanic skills to like rebuild the robot, and he paints it, he gives it like a blue paint job with fucking flames, making it look all awesome. And he turns his car into the head of the robot because the robot didn't have a head anymore. And he's not even doing anything with it. He's just like, yeah, I got a giant robot, isn't it cool? He's just like fucking around and shit the same way you would do if you had like a really nice sports car. Well, after a little while of him just fucking around with his robots, this alien chick shows up, is all pissed off, and she's like, what the hell did you do to my robot? That's my robot. I'm using it to fight against this evil empire so the entire universe doesn't get destroyed. Give me my robot back. And he's like, I mean, sure, I guess if you want the robot back. And then she goes to drive the robot and then realizes she can't, because all of the sophisticated controls that used to be in the robot aren't there anymore. Coop replaced all of it with shit like an Xbox controller and a car steering wheel. And she's sitting there looking at it all dumbfounded, being like, I can't pilot this. What the fuck is this? And he's like, well, if you can't pilot it, then I guess I'll just have to pilot it. My awesome, rad, giant robot that I fixed up that you didn't do anything to help fix up. So she has no choice but to basically give up her role of pilot of the most powerful weapon in the universe to this hillbilly-ass motherfucker who ends up being actually really, really good at giant robot fighting. Because to him, it's like playing a video game. This show is the literal animation equivalent of handing a monkey a rocket launcher. That is essentially the premise of the show. What were to happen if we were to give the most dangerous weapon in the universe to what is essentially a moron. Well, I'll tell you what happens. You get some good goddamn television. This shit is fun. Well, anyway, what could Coop, piloting the Megas XLR, of course, do against Conquest? I mean, the Megas is the most powerful weapon in the universe for a reason. It's actually capable of doing a lot of crazy shit. Now, if you just watch some of the normal fights, it's nothing too impressive. It's a giant robot versus another giant robot or a giant monster or some kind of threat that's some kaiju-sized thing that he has to overcome. And he shoots them, he blows them up, he throws them through buildings. It's all the usual giant kaiju robot monster fighting that you know and love. However, when you start to pay a little bit closer attention, you start to realize that Megas is a monstrously powerful machine. There's a running gag in the show where the majority of the weapons Coop's not allowed to use, like that pilot lady I was telling you about, she doesn't let him use it. And the reason why is because any of the weapons would completely destroy the entire city that they're in. Megas is casually a city buster without ever actually trying. At one point in the show, he actually gets blasted by this massive explosion that you could see from space that is about 250 miles in diameter. In case you're not from a real country and you don't know how long that is, it's about half the length of Florida. That's a big fucking explosion. And Megas XLR just doesn't give a fuck about it. It doesn't affect him at all. It doesn't even scratch the paint. There's one part in the show where Coop has to fight a giant planet-eating creature. It's specifically stated to be the size of a planet that eats other planets. So I guess we could assume it's like a large planet if it's eating, because you'd think like if it's eating other planets, it's not the size of a planet, it would have to be bigger. Like I don't eat chicken legs that are the same size as me. To eat it, it's gotta be smaller, it's gotta fit in my mouth. So you'd assume it's a pretty big planet. He shoots a ton of missiles at this thing and starts blowing chunks of it off. It's not really clear how much of it he blows off, because again, the size of this thing is really not very clear, but it's a fucking planet eater. He's doing a lot of damage. Now, he doesn't do it in one shot. He shoots a bunch of missiles, and each missile chips away at it little by little. So it does well. It's a lot of fucking damage. He's capable, if he wants to, given enough time, to completely blow apart planets. It's a very, very powerful weapon. It's got lasers and machine guns and a sword and rockets and all kinds of crazy shit. It is the most powerful weapon in the universe. So how will it do against Conquest? It's gonna do really, really, really fucking well. I don't think Conquest can kill it. I think if Conquest flew out of the Earth and then rocketed towards Earth as hard as he can and smashed it dead in its face, he still likely wouldn't even dent it. Remember, this whole video is about the television show Invincible, not the comic. So far in the television show, none of the characters are shown to be planet busters or moon busters or flying out of black holes or any of the other ridiculous shit that happens apparently in the comics later on. In the show, these characters are essentially like city busters, maybe? Mark, I would argue at this point, isn't even that. Megas XLR is just so much more powerful. Now, I will give Conquest the speed advantage. Conquest is a lot faster. Not necessarily in punching, but his ability to fly at fast speeds are faster than anything that Megas is shown to do combat-wise. And because he's so big, Conquest can actually use his flying speed as combat speed against Megas. Like, they're not both gonna stand there and get into a fist fight. Conquest is going to be flying around Megas and hitting him. So if he's actually flying around and hitting him, he can use his flight speed and not just his normal punching combat speed like he would against someone who is his own size. Considering that Conquest's flight speed is so much faster than his combat speed, this will actually give him a speed advantage. I also think because Conquest is so small, Coop is going to have a really hard time actually hitting him. Like he's going to be like a fly buzzing around him. It's going to be very, very difficult. Having said that, though, I don't think it's going to matter because Conquest can't actually damage Megas. Like, Megas is shown to be damn near indestructible. It's very, very rarely damaged in the show. And the things that do damage it are so far beyond what Invincible has shown us so far. It's just, I don't think it's going to happen, man. I mean, shit, Megas is so durable that they go to the Infinity Zone at one point. The Infinity Zone is a whole dimension where it has so much gravity and force just pushing down that it crushes literally anything down to the size of an atom. And they do specifically say that this affects kaiju and giant robots as well. So Megas, a robot that is bigger than most skyscrapers, was under so much force that it should have been crushed to the size of an atom, and it was completely unaffected. And when I say it was completely unaffected, I don't mean it just wasn't crushed. It was able to fly around and move under all this pressure. The people on the inside of its cockpit weren't affected either. they were protected by Megas. It's a fucking durable robot is what I'm saying. Conquest is kind of fucked here. It's literally gonna look like Megas struggling to swat a fly, buzzing around and hitting them here and hitting them there, and not really doing a whole lot. But even so, I'm pretty sure Megas has like heat-seek rockets and shit that actually follows its target. So even that might not last really all that long. Megas is a fucking problem, man. He's a threat. So yeah, we're not even at the end yet, and Conquest kind of already loses here. Last up, but certainly not least, we have Dexter Douglas, aka Freakazoid. And you're probably thinking to yourself right now, Rouga, what's even the point of me finishing this video? You already said Conquest gets beat by Megas, so obviously, because this goes from weakest to strongest, Freakazoid's gonna win. We all know how the video is gonna end now. And my response to that would be, what kind of logic is that? Did you stop watching Lord of the Rings in the first 5 minutes because you knew Sauron was gonna lose? No, you watched all 3 movies and they were awesome. Because sometimes experiencing how something happens is more interesting and entertaining than just knowing that it does. So, you know, shut the fuck up. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you, Freakazoid has probably the dumbest origin story I've ever seen in anything ever. It's so stupid. So Dexter Douglas was a nerd who liked computers, and this big old corporation came out with a chip for a computer that was supposed to double the speed of your computer. Doesn't matter what computer it was, it doubled the speed of it, because that is how computers work apparently. But this chip had one very serious flaw that the manufacturer wasn't aware of. If you put the chip in a computer and then you type in a very random set of keys and press the delete button, that chip then gives you superpowers. Yep, it's not a magic chip, it's just a regular computer chip, just happens to have a little flaw built in. On accident, no one meant for this to happen. And who'd have thunk it, after Dexter Douglas got this chip, put it in his computer, his cat walked across the keyboard, pressed this exact combination of keys, and then when he saw it on his computer screen, he tried to delete it, pressed the delete button, boom, he got superpowers. How lucky can you get? And what is the superpower that he obtained? All the knowledge that exists across the entire internet. All of it. Every single bit. This dude's got a lot of kitty porn in his head. Unsurprisingly, Dexter having all this information in his head made him go fucking insane and gave him a split personality. So now you have the Dexter Douglas persona, and then he can turn into the Freakazoid persona, which is just mad with internet knowledge. Oh, also, side thing, it gave him Toon Force powers. That one isn't explained at all. It just is. Apparently having all of the information on the internet just automatically gives you Toon Force powers. Because again, that's how it works. Now, this is normally the part where I go over all the characters' strengths and powers and all that different kind of stuff, but there's really no point in doing that here. Like, I can explain to you the most damage he's ever dealt, or how hard he's hit in the past, or what his durability is, or what his speed is based on his best feats he's ever done, or all of his little crazy powers. But at the end of the day, his power is Toon Force. Freakazoid can do anything that he wants to do at any given time, and the only limiters on his power is if it's funny or not. This is one of many reasons why scalers don't agree with the way that I do things, because the way they do things is that they have a set way of measuring everything across all universes. So it's like, how much durability does he have? Let's measure his fucking durability, right? So they take the most damage he's ever taken, and they're like, okay, that's his greatest durability. Anything over that and he'll die. And they do that across literally every character that they want to scale. So if you did that to Freakazoid, that would be an 800 megaton nuke, because he takes an 800 megaton nuke to the face. So a scaler would just come to the conclusion that that's how durable he is. But that doesn't make any sense, because they have to actively ignore the rules of the universe in order to do that. Yes, while it's true that is the most powerful thing that's ever hit him, he's been turned to ash from far weaker weapons, and then the nuke doesn't do anything to him. It doesn't matter if that nuke was 10 times the strength as that, or 1,000, or 10,000, or 1 billion. He still wouldn't have died. His body and character reacts to everything that happens to it depending on what's funny at any given time. But scalers with their little fucking computer brains and inability to actually understand what the storytellers are trying to tell you with the things they put on the screen, and their lack of story comprehension, will completely ignore all of that. It doesn't matter how fast Freakazoid is shown to go. It doesn't matter how strong he is. It doesn't matter how durable he is. It doesn't matter what powers he has. He's a Toon Force character. He can do whatever he wants based on what is funny. That's his power. That is basically every Toon Force character's power that has ever existed. So given that, does that mean that Freakazoid cannot be beaten? No. Wait, hold up. Double negative. No, Freakazoid cannot not be beaten. Shit. Yes, Freakazoid can be beaten. There we go. Like I said, he has Toon Force powers, which is the same as all versions of Toon Force powers. It's based on what's funny. Just like Goku is empowered by Ki and Hulk is empowered by gamma radiation, so too are Toon Force characters empowered by humor. But in order to figure out the weakness of this power, we have to actually look at Toon Force characters and find out what's going on. So this is where we get to a point that I'm pretty sure I originated. I don't know if anyone else looks at it this way, but I've always looked at it this way. The only way to overcome a Toon Force character is to be in on the joke more than they are. Let me explain what I mean. Let's look at something like Looney Tunes, right? The most powerful god-level being in the Looney Tunes universe is Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny is clearly shown to be smarter and more clever than anybody else. He can overcome Daffy, Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam. Doesn't matter who he comes up against. He will always overcome because he is the funniest character. He has the best sense of humor. He's always in on the joke. When you have a story with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck always loses to Bugs Bunny. There might be like 1 or 2 times where he didn't, but for the most part, Daffy Duck always loses. But that's only if Daffy is going up against Bugs Bunny. If you remove Bugs Bunny from the story, and you have a story with like Daffy Duck and Yosemite Sam, now all of a sudden, Daffy Duck becomes the most powerful character in the story, and he completely outdoes Yosemite Sam. He's also shown making a fool of Marvin the Martian, and Elmer Fudd, and a lot of different people. Daffy is actually a very powerful and competent character when Bugs Bunny isn't around. So what makes this happen? Do all these characters just have certain power levels and certain ones can overcome others? No. Bugs Bunny has the best sense of humor. He's in on the joke. Daffy Duck also has a very good sense of humor, but Bugs Bunny annoys the shit out of him. And because of this, he allows himself to get angry, and then he becomes the butt of the joke. All of the villains across Looney Tunes have the same thing in common. They're all the straight men. They're all the characters that don't get the joke. Yosemite Sam has no sense of humor. Elmer Fudd has no sense of humor. They're funny characters because the things that happen to them are funny, but they themselves don't get the joke. They're not in on it. This is the strength of a Toon Force character. You have to have an understanding of what's funny better than the person you're going up against. For instance, if Daffy Duck gets a big ass cannon to shoot Bugs Bunny in the face, Bugs Bunny can just sit there with a smile on his face and wait for the cannon to go off, because Bugs Bunny knows that it would be funnier if the cannon blew back and shot Daffy instead of him. So that's exactly what happens. Daffy also can normally do this against his villains, just not against Bugs, because he allows his anger at Buzz to overcome him. Like a good example of this is, let's say you're watching like, I don't know, a roasting competition, right? And you got one dude on each side and they're both roasting the fuck out of each other, okay? One dude is giving way better roasts than the other person, but the dude who's giving better roasts is also kind of sensitive, and he's not laughing at himself and enjoying the roasts that are being done to him. He's taking them super, super personally. The guy on the other side who's not giving as good of roasts are just laughing the whole time, enjoying the roast that he's giving and the roast that the other guy's giving. Who's winning that roast session? The guy who's not taking it seriously, who's laughing at everything, right? The guy who's getting all up in his feelings, even though his roasts are better, everyone's gonna say he's losing the roast. His inability to laugh at himself and get the joke, his lack of a sense of humor, is going to make it look like he's losing. That's basically how Toon Force works. And it's not just Looney Tunes characters who works this way. This is across all Toon Force characters. If you take someone like Tom and Jerry, Tom is the straight man, and Jerry is the trickster who is constantly playing jokes on Tom. Tom's the one who doesn't get it, so Jerry's the one that always wins and overcomes Tom. What Freakazoid does is it takes the whole Toon Force concept that was basically created by Looney Tunes, and it applies it to only Freakazoid within its universe. The rest of the characters in Freakazoid are far more grounded than Freakazoid himself, and are not capable of doing any of these things. But Freakazoid, a Warner Brothers character, is very much so designed in the same way that the Looney Tunes characters are designed, which is also owned by Warner Brothers, just, you know, applied to that one dude. So by looking at how this Toon Force works across all of Warner Brothers medium, we can pretty easily come to the determination of how to defeat Freakazoid. You defeat Freakazoid by getting the joke more than he does, by having a better sense of humor, and by understanding what's funnier more than Freakazoid does. So the question then becomes, does Conquest have a better sense of humor and get the joke more than Freakazoid? Fuck no. Are you kidding me? No, this isn't even close. Like, there are certain superhero characters that would probably do amazingly against Freakazoid. Conquest ain't him. Like, I think you can very easily argue that characters like the Joker or Spider-Man, the Creeper, Plastic Man would actually do really, really well against Freakazoid, despite the fact that none of them are really as powerful as Freakazoid. But yeah, Conquest ain't it, man. In order to overcome Freakazoid, you're gonna have to use someone with a far greater understanding of the rules of comedy that can then utilize those rules against him. Honestly, I would even argue the fact that Conquest probably doesn't even know what Toon Force is because he's not from our planet that has these types of shows and kind of invented the concept. Even if he did have a decent sense of humor, he wouldn't play along and go with it in the same way that you would have to in order to overcome this character, because to him, it's still just going to be like a serious fight. But that's the thing about Toon Force fights. They're not serious fights. It's all about who could be funnier. So yeah, Conquest would lose here. If he went off somewhere and went through like a training arc where he developed a really good sense of humor and watched a bunch of Looney Tunes and kind of understood how it works, and then went back, maybe he could beat Freakazoid. But I doubt it, because even people in modern day who watch Looney Tunes aren't aware of the rules of how the power system works. Weird saying that Looney Tunes has a power system, but it kind of does. And funny enough, it has a way more consistent power level than even Marvel Comics and shit, because, you know, Bugs always overcomes Daffy, and Daffy always overcomes Yosemite Sam and Marvin the Martian, and like, it's very consistent what characters are on top and what characters are on the bottom. It's just a fact. They are actually super consistent power levels in Looney Tunes. But that's going to be all for me today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, comment, share, and join the membership. Remember, you join the membership, you get videos early. And always remember, y'all stay safe out there, you hear?